Yes, very happy to be joined again by Nick Buckley, MBE. Nick now just very simply describes himself as a man on a mission. We've spoken to him many times over the course of this year. He was in the running for the mayoral candidacy of Manchester, Greater Manchester. It's nice to have him back on here again today. Nick, just talking briefly before you came on air there, tensions are absolutely being stoked to high heavens at the minute, and won't take much to maybe push us into very, very dark territory indeed.
No, absolutely. All it takes now is one serious incident. It takes some white lads to beat to death an Asian or a black person, or it takes a Muslim to shoot or stab some white people, and then we will see mass violence across the country. Keir Starmer's handled this appallingly. He's now opened the tinderbox and he's just waiting for someone to light it.
Yeah, there's an article that I'm reading here. Of course, the buzzword at the minute that you can't get away from is two-tier policing. Two-tier policing. Now we're hearing two-tier justice system, so much so that Starmer's new nickname on social media accounts is two-tier Keir. Yeah. Even Elon Musk, the CEO or owner of Twitter, has started hashtagging our Prime Minister or Keir Starmer as two-tier Keir. And an article here was published talking about the England Rats. Now, this is, I'm just reading this from The Guardian. Please forgive me here, but it gives you a flavour of the mindset that's out there. It says, England Rats has now become two-tier policing myth. Okay, this myth has become widespread. So they claim the idea has been propagated by Tommy Robinson and others from the far right, but the claim does not stand up to scrutiny. So I want to put aside people that are stoking the flames, and there are definitely agents out there that are causing a lot of tensions to rise rather than trying to dissipate it. There's no doubt on both sides of the fence, by the way. But it's this business here about the idea is a myth. Okay, it's a myth. But it's not a myth, because when you use your eyes and you see what's happening at the minute, going back to a few weeks ago, Leeds, Hare Hill, you saw the police running away from marauding gangs that were setting fire to public property. They couldn't control the situation. Then you saw in Manchester Airport, you saw a policeman. The first footage that was released was of him assaulting someone who was on the ground. He had been tasered, but then footage came out of them assaulting police officers. He broke someone's nose. They've been released on bail, employed a human rights lawyer, and are now saying that they feel victimized, whereas people that have been, waving sticks in certain parts of the UK last weekend are now remanded in custody and about to face, quote, the full force of the law, unquote. Prisons have been cleared out of people found guilty of manslaughter to raise spaces for people like you or me if we were out rioting, which of course we won't be, and we don't condone it in any way, shape or form. But other people have been out, done some stupid stuff, should be reprimanded for it or feel some force of the law for it, but they're going to take the place in prison of maybe people that have been in for killing with machetes not 6 months ago. So hard to deny it, really, isn't it? It's there for everybody to see.
Yeah, let's start off with The Guardian. So is this The Guardian newspaper who've been telling us for decades that black people are treated really poorly by the police because it's two-tier policing? Is this The Guardian who've been telling us for decades that gay people are persecuted by the police because there's two-tier policing? And suddenly, because the two-tier policing isn't in their favour, they now deny it actually exists. They've been telling us for decades there's two-tier policing. Keir Starmer's not started this. Keir Starmer has inherited two-tier policing. This has been going on decades and decades. I can actually give you a real-life personal story in a minute. But he inherited this. We've known since the COVID time, but it went on before that. We've saw how Black Lives Matter protests were treated. We've seen how Extinction Rebellion protests were treated. There's a video online of a senior police officer saying to protesters from Extinction Rebellion, "Are you comfortable sat down? Would you like me to get you all a cup of tea?" And she was something like a chief inspector or something. And then we saw how the protesters on COVID, for the forced vaccinations, the lockdowns, we saw how they were treated by the police very differently. So it doesn't matter what you tell us, Keir Starmer, or anybody else. We have eyes, we have ears, we've seen it. it exists. You might not think it exists because you might think this is normal because it's always been normal in your lifetime, in your political lifetime, but it happens and we're sick of it. And us all having video phones now has shown the whole world it's actually happening because we can film it there and then. These aren't rumours. These aren't myths. We actually see the footage. Let me give you a real example from 15, 20 years ago. So I was a community safety coordinator for Manchester Council, based in a police station. I ran the city centre in terms of reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. And in Manchester Gay Village, there's an underground part of the canal that was being used by perverted men for having open sex. Groups of them would go down there for sex. We got complaints of barge people who were going down saying, my kids are watching 15 men having sex as the barge went past. We had to do something about it. We installed CCTV, we warned people, and in the end, we were going to go to enforcement. We're going to start arresting and locking people up for lewd behaviour, which is against the law. Then we got told before we did it, you can't do it. These are gay people. We need to engage the community first. So we had to spend a year engaging the gay community in Manchester, who 98% all said, that's disgusting, clamp down on that. The day we went to clamp down, we got a memo from the top brass saying, we're now cancelling the whole project. We don't want to be called homophobic. That was 15, 20 years ago. We were treating the gay community then differently than anybody else because we didn't want to be called homophobic. So roll on 20 years. Of course, it's happening now. It's happening worse now. And we can all see it.
And of course, if you break the law, if you break the law, you break the law. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, asexual, whatever these terms and conditions are. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Buddhist, an atheist, a devil worshipper, male or female, whatever. If you break the law, you should feel the full force of the law, which is what the government are piping on about at the minute. So there shouldn't be exemptions based on certain demographics, and there shouldn't be exemptions based on certain orientations, but yet that's what it seems to be happening, at least from what we can see. So in other words, if there's a violent occurrence and kettling is used in Leeds, well then if there's a violent occurrence and then kettling should be used in Manchester. I appreciate every single situation that has its own nuances and is not exactly the same. But what I mean is if there's a violent uprising or protest and wanting criminal damage, the same tactics should be applied irrespective of the location or who's actually doing the damage. Everybody should be treated the same way and everybody should be dealt with the same way without any exception. So it's obviously a real bone of contention at the minute, and the government are coming hell and high leather at it and saying, well, no, it's not true. It's a myth, according to The Guardian, for example, or Yvette Cooper and Starmer, of course, made another statement saying, no, policing is done with, what was it, fear and without fear or favour. The opposite could be arguably be said to be true. So we've got to take a little break, Nick, just for 30 seconds, a little headline break. When we come back at the other side, I want to look at some of the incidents that are happening in Birmingham, where an interview has come out with a police commissioner, where he actually, or a senior police officer, where he more or less admits, well, we've been told don't go into that area. We've got it under control ourselves. I didn't think you could do that sort of thing with the police unless you were a high-ranking police officer. Maybe I've got that wrong, but let's look at that when we come back here on TNT. Don't go away. Okay, speaking with Nick Buckley this morning from Manchester. Nick, an interview has came out. It's in the public domain. Yesterday, it was a West Midlands police officer speaking in relation to the disorders in Birmingham. Of course, it's hard to keep track at the minute. This all started in Leeds, and then there was disorder in Southport, and then Southend, and then Bolton and Plymouth the other day, and Birmingham as well. And they're talking about London now as well. So let's focus on Birmingham at this point in time. This guy comes out with a statement, and, you know, the analysis is he's just admitted the two-tier policing, reference why there were no police present in Birmingham yesterday or the day before. Listen out for the key cover-up words. He said, well, we met with community leaders. Number one, we were assured that they would police that themselves. Number two, that the style of policing that the police were going to potentially employ may not be conducive to peaceful behaviour in the community. There was only a small minority of criminals, and someone else has commented on this here. These aren't my words. Translation, we didn't show up because community leaders told us that people would attack the police and this would be bad for the narrative. So now we're letting them self-police to maintain that charade. Is that a thing, or is this guy hallucinating, or is this happening for real?
That's happening for real. And that in one clip is exactly what's wrong with the country. That's why we're having riots, which I condone. I support the protests because we're sick of it. We're sick of how the country is failing. We're sick of how everyone's being treated differently. We're sick of it. I don't condone the violence, the robbing of shops, the throwing bricks. But that clip then, that officer has hit the nail on the head. We're treating that community differently. We're dealing with community leaders. Who are community leaders? Can you show me the election of them to the position of community leader? They're self-appointed community leaders, and they become community leaders out of fear. That's how they become a community leader. And now we're saying to communities, it's okay, you can have militia groups, you can be vigilantes, and we daren't go into your neighborhood. We've been saying this for years, and every time we say it, we're told we're racist, we're far right, we're making it up. Here's an example now. It has to stop. We have to treat everybody the same. And if they have to go into those areas and crack heads to get it under control, then go and crack some heads. And if white people are throwing bricks at the police, go and crack their heads. I'm sick of this. And if we don't get a grip, we're in for very dark days coming down the path now. Dark days.
We are. And two things I want to pick up on as well is, this whole business, there are many peaceful protests going on at the minute for people that are concerned, for people that have genuine concerns and fears about the way the country's going at the minute, who have no intention of committing any violent acts, are not provoking or inciting any acts. These are peaceful protests. But alongside those peaceful protests, we have violent thuggery and wanton destruction and burning out shops and attacking individuals from all sides. This is in all communities, and that's bang out of order. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to marry the two together to say that this march turned peaceful, or this anti-immigration march turned violent. No, there was an element of thugs that came out and attacked properties and should be prosecuted. But there was also a huge amount of people, possibly in different areas, that have no interest in violence, that condone violence, that don't want to see any violence because it's their community getting smashed up, but yet they're being married into this violent subset here, and they're trying to tar everybody with the same brush. And also, on the community leader front, a community leader should never be in the position that they can dictate to the police that, stay out, we've got this under control. You can't do that. Now, having said that, community leaders could play a role if the police are savvy, and I've seen a lot of this over in Northern Ireland. Certain areas, let's just say hard areas, will have certain people that, what they say goes in that area. They're not the law, they're not appointed, but you know what I mean? Based on their background and their influence, they have a lot of sway. And there are a lot of liaison groups were set up with the police. So if tensions were rising in an area, for example, the community leader could potentially calm things down, but never dictate what the police could and couldn't do. And if they wanted to go into the area, they wouldn't certainly have the power to be barred by any community leader. So I think that role can have, some merits somewhere, as long as everything's done legally. However, I think it's also being manipulated. That rule's being manipulated, and it's now elevated itself to say, well, actually, we police this area. This is our turf. This is our manner. We do it our way. We've got it under control. You just stay out. That's bang out of order.
Yeah, let me push back on that a little bit. So community leaders, you're right, there and then, some community leaders can reduce the tensions there and then.
Yes.
But what you've done then is you've empowered those community leaders to be community leaders. And it's the fact that we have and need community leaders is at the heart of the problem in the first place. So the sticking plaster of engaging and validating community leaders just exacerbates the underlying issues we have in community. And for people in this country who don't understand why multiculturalism is failing and why communities can't live next door to each other and don't integrate, you just mentioned a great example. Let's look across the sea to Northern Ireland and Ulster. We had decades and decades of white Christians killing white Christians. Why? Because they perceived each other to be different. If we don't integrate and we don't assimilate, we always end up with Northern Ireland, Cyprus, Yugoslavia, Rwanda. The list is endless. Every history book in the world teaches us that differences in people leads to violence, murder, and genocide. And we keep enforcing these narratives that diversity is our strength. And no, diversity is our nightmare.
The one thing as well, just on closing, because we've got to wrap this up, that's a very good point that you made concerning the empowerment of community leaders. I think, though, Nick, the thing about community leaders are, whether they're endorsed or not, whether we agree with them or not, they're always going to be there. They're self-appointed, as you've rightly pointed out. They're not elected. It's not an official post. It's a community post, whatever that community happens to be. I suppose the best thing that they could have said is listen to their people that they influence, stay inside, don't come out, don't engage in violence, don't walk the streets masked up with weapons looking for trouble, stay in the house. And then when the police do come in to do their job, they're not going to have any trouble. They're going to have an easy time of it here in whatever area that they're going in. But of course, that wasn't the case, and that wasn't the case at all. So I hope we're wrong about all this tension. I hope we're wrong about all this escalation. But what can you do? We can only observe what we see, and we can only try and give.
Only Keir Starmer can stop this.
Well, he can, again, is he not the ultimate community leader, albeit in a so-called elected sense? He should have the most influence over everybody. He should be doing what's right for the greater community. But whether or not he's actually doing that is certainly a lot of people are questioning it at the minute. Nick, it's been an absolute blast talking to you this morning. Really appreciate you hopping on, giving us your thoughts and insights, especially with your background and in the area that you live. So, well, sadly, I think I'll be talking to you again sooner rather than later as this continues to evolve. So, Nick Buckley, thank you very much. We've got to take a break now.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.